So this is super creepy. And then I have Ynet News out of Israel, one of their big publications. Risk of Israel U.S. strike on Iran has tripled. Senior risk analyst at Barclays Capital says chances of military operation increased from 5 to 10% to 25 to 30% in the past year. And then they also have another article here on this on Reuters. So we're going to get Steve Pieczenik's update on all of this. Steve Pieczenik, of course, co-wrote many of the books and was the advisor on the all-time best-selling military adventure novels. They're so realistic. Of course, with Tom Clancy. He's got a MD in psychiatry from Harvard and also a PhD from Cornell Medical College. I think one of the only people to ever get both those at the same time. And I can't go over his illustrious bio. And he, of course, has worked on overthrowing foreign leaders, you name it. I mean, to try to get into it. Someday we got to get Steve Pieczenik on about himself. He never wants to talk about himself and any stories he can tell us just because they're so interesting. But StevePieczenik.com, he, of course, helped us expose. And I've since talked to a national media figure and then talked to the individuals they put me in contact with at very high level in the current CIA. And they just said, we want to tell you you're right about bin Laden. Very bizarre 3 weeks ago to have this person reach out to me just to say, I just want to tell you you're right about bin Laden. Very, very strange to have that happen. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But there's a rebellion going on in the government right now against all this stuff that's happening. And that's pretty much been admitted. Steve Pieczenik told us about it months ago. Dr. Pieczenik joins us now. Doc, all this crazy stuff happening in Pakistan, what's really going on right now?
Well, I'm always glad to be on your show, Alex, and I've got to tell you how important your show is really going on. What's happening in Pakistan is we have literally created a civil war in Pakistan. And the attack of our killing 22 Pakistani officers is part of a long-term attempt by the CIA, not by our military, but the CIA, to create a government, a shadow government within Pakistan. And what we literally are doing in the Pakistani state is to divide the ISI, the Interstate Intelligence Unit, against each other, to push the military of the Pakistan against the civilians, civilians against civilians, because we no longer trust the Prime Minister or any element within the Inter-Service Intelligence Agency, which we created 20, 30 years ago to help us fight terrorism. So what's happened is we have used drones to kill Pakistani soldiers and others whom we felt have not been helping us, and we have created literally the American shadow state in Pakistan. We have gone in and created what's called the T unit within ISI. ISI is the Inter-Service Intelligence and breaking and outsourcing of the CIA 20, 30 years ago to fight the Mujahideen. But the S unit of the ISI has been working with the military government and the Prime Minister to try to stabilize it. So we are now in a civil war that we've created by the CIA, civilians, under Panetta, and we have disrupted the entire state of Pakistan and breaking it down. Now, Pakistan, more than Iran or any other state, is the most dangerous country that we can take apart because of the nuclear bombs that are there and their ability to use it and the ability for them to break away from any central control. Now, even the CIA senior analysts, including Bruce Riedel, who's one of the top CIA operatives, who created the plan for the Afghanistan-Iraq borders and having our soldiers in, and the CIA said, this is a bad situation going to worse. And one of our senior generals who was fired by Panetta and Obama, a distinguished admiral by the name of Dennis Blair, who's the director of national intelligence, said repeatedly, the CIA cannot run these drones continuously into Pakistan and CIA. That is not a covert operation. Covert is for a short period of time. A long period of time is a military action, and we have to have transparency, rules of engagement, and he was fired for that. So within the military, we are having a major war between the military, the Army, the Navy, and the civilians. The civilians are in control of an organization that is totally out of control now. And what's happening is the American public is paying $20 billion, $20 billion, just to pay off some of the warlords that we have to create in this secret government or the American shadow state in Pakistan. It is so serious that not one legislator has talked about it, not one Republican contender has talked about it, and of course our President of the United States never mentioned it. And instead he made this absurd comment that he killed Osama bin Laden. So what we have is disinformation, we have lying, and we have a war where our brave men and women are being killed for a strategy that makes no sense, an objective we could never reach, which is stabilize Pakistan. And instead, we have created our very own problem thanks to the CIA once again running the drones when, in fact, military superiors like Dennis Blair and others from CPAC have said we have to take over the drone activities in Pakistan and elsewhere in order to diminish the collateral damage. On top of that, to make matters worse, we now have lobbyists. You won't believe this, Alex. I know the audience won't believe this, who are going around to lobby for a group called the MEK. The fancy name is Mujahideen, who are Iranian terrorists whom I fought against in the 1970s and 80s, who killed many of my operatives and civilians and contractors who worked for Khomeini. But Khomeini, who took us hostage during the same period of time, never killed one of my hostages on the State Department. But the MEK, which did kill 6 to 10 of my people on the field in the 70s, have hired the following people to lobby this group to the Secretary of State Clinton to tell them to delist this terrorist group, the MEK, for money. So each one of the following people have received $30,000 to delist a terrorist group. There was Howard Dean and Governor Rendell, General Wesley Clark, General James Jones, CIA Director Woolsey, CIA Director Gross, and one of the greatest whores of all in the lobbies is Fran Townsend, who you see on CNN repeatedly as a, quote, expert in counterterrorism. And then she was exposed last night by Anderson Cooper, where she's a CNN contributor, for also being a whore for lobbyists for a drug company in smallpox where they had nothing to do with it. Then we had Rudy Giuliani, all of whom were hired for $30,000 to $50,000. Mind you, this is a well-known terrorist group that has killed my people, our American people, and have been paid 30 years later to delist them from the terrorist group. So basically, we now have an industry where you can hire politicians and ex-politicians to use their prestige to say that that group, let's say Osama bin Laden, is not a terrorist, or Al-Qaeda is not a terrorist. This is what's happening now in the United States.
Well, I mean, Steve, Dr. Steve Pieczenik's our guest. We got to go to break. We're going to come right back. But it's like that everywhere. Look at MF Global, where he's the CEO. He takes the money, and he tells them, I don't know where the money went in front of Congress. The ATF's been caught shipping guns into Mexico, and the memos have now been released that they were going to blame it on the Second Amendment, and have. That's a false flag event. And now it's just government totally for sale. You've got the Solara Group. You've got $500 million given to an energy company that never even built anything. I mean, it in a corrupt world, it's accelerating. We'll ask you why on the other side. And then there's proof of what you're saying about the CIA trying to cause a civil war. Riots in Pakistan for a secret deal with U.S. to pay $2.3 million blood money to free CIA agent who shot dead 2 men. Folks, we had General Hamid Gul on, who the media has called the real head of Al-Qaeda. The point is, we've had him on 5-6 times over the years because a lot of people listen over in Pakistan. And he's a national figure there. And he said they're trying to start a civil war. But he went on to say that's probably what it is. And he gave evidence. But he said it is a crazy plan because it's only going to unify Pakistan, in his words. And he said, I don't like it, but now the military basically is running Pakistan. I want to get Dr. Steve Pieczenik, who you could say at that same peer level as a counterpart to somebody like General Hamid Gul, who's also a very crafty individual and intelligent. But here's Daily Mail, Associated Press, you name it. This is just last week, and then it happened again months before that. Riots in Pakistan after a secret deal with the U.S. to pay $2.3 million blood money to free CIA agent who shot dead 2 men. And they tried to claim diplomatic immunity, and he's out shooting people. It was also reported that he was trying to give uranium to some of the so-called Mujahideen tribal groups. Dr. Pieczenik's a real expert on this. What do you make of that case with the CIA agent, what was his name, Raymond Allen Davis? What did you make of that situation? And, of course, that's more credence to the destabilization program. And do you agree with Gould that it's having the opposite effect?
Well, number one, I'm not a great admirer, as I've told you repeatedly over the years, because of the CIA inept there. I think one of the things I must say that having worked for President Carter, who fired 4,000 CIA operatives, at the time I thought he was wrong. In retrospect, I think he was right. The CIA is totally out of control. Banana has been very inept in managing the CIA. The CIA is totally corrupt. They have no strategy. They're totally dysfunctional. Even as one of the senior officials has said, as I said, Bruce Rydell, who created the program, what they're creating is not only a nationalized program, what they're doing is destabilizing the entire area far beyond already in a failed state. So let me explain what that means. Pakistan is really a tribal area. They're not unified. There are 8 or 9 families that control the entire country and are totally corrupt. Benazir Bhutto was corrupt. Her husband, who's now the president of Pakistan, was in prison when I was there, and I worked with the senior official, Yaqub Khan, who put him in prison. And I have been working with the Islamic fundamentalists 20 years ago, where I went to school with them, and they were trying to make a revolution in a civil way. Now what happened, because there is no plan, the CIA has no objectives, and they're totally dysfunctional. That's why the military must take it over. They have created a dysfunctional state now. They won't be unified. I think the general is correct in certain ways. I think it's much more serious than that. I think they're going to be so fragmented because the AFTA, that's called the Federally Administered Tribal Zones, where we have a lot of problems there, and hundreds of Pakistani soldiers were killed before Musharraf was in charge, and Musharraf gave us, the United States and the CIA, permission to come in and become a shadow state within the Pakistan. So you have to understand what that means. That means within our own country, we will have foreign troops to be a shadow state to try to destabilize every state from New York, the East Coast, all the way to California. There is no more Pakistan. What it is now, they're not going to unify. What will happen is they will fractionate, and then groups will take those bombs and use them at will wherever they need to, because we can't control it. And what happens then, as our troops, our honorable warriors, have left Iraq and Afghanistan, and 100,000 will be leaving, and they have spent their lives and their bravery for a strategy that makes no sense. In the meantime, the CIA took it over, destroyed Pakistan, trying to destroy Iran. That won't work. So we have 2 wars that are in effect going on at this particular point, but we call it covert operations. It's not a covert operation. They are literally wars. One is a civil war that we have created with this president.
All right, but let me ask you this then, Doctor. This is important. What is the strategy then in Pakistan?
What is what?
What is the strategy then? What do they think they're doing?
The strategy was that we were to take over the United States. The CIA wanted to take over the divisions of the ISI, which was called S Division. That's the term they used, which wasn't working with the United States to, quote, kill terrorists. Well, those terrorists were the Mujahideen that we created, and Haqqani Group and Al-Qaeda were all that we created. In other words, we created our own mess 20 years ago. We go in there to try to clean up that mess, and instead we created more of a mess. So we have no strategy. We have no focal point. You don't have a Kissinger. You don't have a Baker. You don't have a Schultz. You don't have a point of strategy where it says we need to stabilize the country in order to maintain stability. Instead, we've destabilized it. India's just waiting for it to be destabilized. China's backing.
Stay there, Doc. Stay there. Finish up when we come back.